My top tips for simple living. Hi, my name's Roger Osborne. In today's video, it's a little different. I'll be sharing with you some things that we've learnt about how to live self-sustainably. Whatever constraints you have, I'm positive you can use what you do have combined with a little creativity to become more and more self-reliant. Now, I'm not being paid anything to do this video, but Bluetti has sent us 2 B300K expansion batteries, and we are stoked because they complete the home backup system that my friend has had for a couple of years. So we're going to have a quick look at that first. Otherwise, you can use the chapter headings to jump to my top tips about simple living. Stick around to the end for a free PDF download which will outline some vital keys from today's session. We just love getting off grid and doing this sort of stuff. Are you into it too? Let me know in the comments if you'd like more of this type of content, and we're happy to share it with you. Everything that we're learning about living sustainably, eating healthy, growing our own organic produce, and so much more. Don't forget, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Let's get into it. All right, I guess it's time to get this thing out of the box. Well, there's a box within a box. I love it when there's a box within a box. Oh, that's not as heavy as the other ones, actually. That's really cool. They're quite heavy, or the other ones are a lot heavier. This is noticeably lighter. Well, it's quite slimline. No bells and whistles. I think I'll open the other one and we'll plug it into the system and see how it works. So the system we're plugging the 2 B300K batteries into is our friend's AC500 home backup system with 4 B300S batteries and is powered by 6 generic 440 watt monocrystalline solar panels. We've been using the AC500 system for nearly 2 years on our rural property, and it's powered everything we've needed for all of our projects, including this rustic little cabin as you might have seen us building in other videos. These B300K batteries are meant to work with a bunch of different systems, and this AC500 home backup can take up to 6 batteries, so now the system is complete with a whopping 17.8 kilowatts. This battery really is simple, which makes life easier for us, and it's actually lighter than the B300S batteries, and it's only a few hundred watts less extra power. This is a huge pro for us, and my back's happy already. It's got one USB port and everything else is just pure battery. Just plug it in and use it. You can find more information on the Bluetti website. The link is in the description below if you want to check that out. Anyway, we'll try it all out and report back in part 2 of how it's going, along with some more tips for simple living. Now, don't worry if you don't have the means to get equipment like this. Wherever you live in the world, there's always something that you can do to become more self-sustainable. And that leads me to my first point, which is research. That's something that we've done a lot of. We've got all these dreams and goals and visions, but we always do research. For example, even this peach tree that I'm standing next to, we wanted to find out about the climate where we have our property, what plants will grow well in that climate. So we did a lot of searching on YouTube, on the internet, and then we looked at different varieties of plants that were frost tolerant. So it was really important to actually start off the right way with plants that will actually grow well in our area. Then also we found out about what they call water batteries for plants, which is essentially burying old rotting logs underneath a tree when you plant it, and they act as a water battery. They call them water batteries, and they absorb moisture So the area we are is pretty dry. So we actually dug really deep holes, much bigger than is necessary for the plants that we're planting. And we put some logs under there, and then small bits of wood, and then bark, and then mulch. And then we also got some really good fertile soil and put that in there as well. So we've given our trees the absolute best possible start for growing trees. And this one has only been in for about 5 months. It's only a young tree, but it's quite laden with peaches, which is pretty cool. Quite a few of our trees, even though they're small, are bearing fruit. But I'm confident because of the research we did that these are going to do well. We've set them up for success. And we've planted some 35 trees so far, and every single one is alive. None of them have died. So that's pretty cool. So research is such a big thing. If you just spend a little bit of time doing that research, then all of your effort isn't in vain, because all of these things, you know, when you devote time to something, you don't want to waste your time. You want to make sure that it works well. You know how passionate I am about fishing. I research all the time. It's just my habit. I'm always investigating because I want to achieve my goals. So whether you live in an apartment in the city, there's always something you can do. One thing to think about is, you know, if you have a balcony, what is my aspect? Which way does my balcony face? Do I face north? When do I get sun? Because you could grow herbs, tomatoes, all sorts of things, even if you live in an apartment. One thing that we did, flies everywhere out here, we've just completed a log cabin that we built, and we felled trees, we debarked them. And then part of our research was that we found out that when they used to build the old shearing sheds, what they would do was put salt around the timber, the trees, as the posts that they used for the building, because termites don't like salt. And that's quite a simple and easy way to termite-proof your timber supporting poles when you put them in the ground. So that's what we did. We bought bags of pool salt and put them around our posts. So once you've decided what your goal is, what you'd like to actually do, it's really important to write a list, to just take the time to sit down and write a list of exactly what you'll need. If you need any tools, and also ask for help, get advice from people. You may have some friends who are really good at different things. It's great to pick their brains and get ideas from different people. And that leads me to my next point, which is work smart. What I mean by that is to utilize anything that will make it easier and cheaper to get your job done. One thing that we've done a lot of is Facebook Marketplace and buy, swap, sell, because a lot of times we haven't had the budget to do different things. So we've had to be patient, and we do searches and we look, and it's actually a lot of fun. It's really rewarding when you pick up some bargains. It's awesome. My wife absolutely loves it. With working smart, that's another place where, how good is YouTube? Because there's so many places where people will show you quick and easy ways of doing things. That's really what we do. A lot of that sort of thing is we're always doing exactly what I said, looking on Marketplace, checking YouTube, checking Google, asking friends. Also, whether you need help or not, involve other people. It's just way much more fun with other people. It's great for building relationships. You really learn a lot that way. And it's so rewarding when you actually start to see the fruits of your labours and you can share it. It's pretty boring when you do things by yourself. It's much better sharing your stuff with other people. My third tip for simple living is learn how to find and harvest your own bait for going fishing. This is something that I do a lot. I've actually made a couple of videos on it. But when you find your own bait, it's absolutely free and you can catch beautiful fresh fish to eat. And that's a wonderful thing to do. A lot of us do live near water, whether it's salt water or inland waterways. So fishing is a pretty good option for eating healthy food and living sustainably. And there's something I'm going to do on our land. It's a little bit like fishing, as we have wild deer on our property. So I could spend hours hunting through the bush, but I'm going to burley for the deer. I'm going to plant a few goodies in a specific place and just let the deer come to me. So every so often I can harvest a beautiful deer. The great thing is not only it's good for your wallet, you save money, it's absolutely free, but you're learning amazing skills too. So now I'm just going to show you 2 baits that you can find for yourself. That is what's called a squirt worm or a case worm. swimming through the water. It's come out of its little home. Good spotting, Adam. Now I'm going to catch this guy. Can you see that worm? Look, he's actually squirting. This is how I think they reproduce. You can see he squirted out like a creamy type material into the water in my hand. But that is actually an amazing bait, these worms. They're called case worms or squirt worms. And you find them in the sandy areas near the shore. So we're going to go and look for some shortly, and I'll show you how to find them. One of the ways that you find them is that they create like a little case that the worms live in. And they're quite obvious. And I've got some just here to show you, so we're going to have a look. If you can see where I'm pointing with my finger, can you see there's these like cases with tiny little holes in the end? And that shows a colony of case worms or squirt worms. They have this case which is like sand, it's like a tube, and they must put some sort of saliva or something to make this sandy tube, and they live in that. And one of the ways you catch them is, the reason you call them squirt worms is if you get a tin like this and you push it into the sand, the air going into the sand goes through their holes and they go boop and pop back out of the sand again. So I'm going to try that. Also, you can use a yabby pump as well just to suck them out onto the sand. So we're just going to have a little look and see what we can find here. I'm going to try both methods. It's better if it's dry when you do this, but I'm going to try it near the water here, and I'm going to cover the holes in this tin and go. Okay, so I didn't really see any air come up there, so I'm going to try the yabby pump instead. So I'm going to get my yabby pump here, and oh, look at that. Hang on. Here's a good one. I'm going to rinse him. I'll just rinse him off so we can see him. There's actually a worm. See that case? There's that one. That's another one there. That's what the case looks like, the casing. Now this casing here has a worm inside it. So, oh look, there he is, he came out. Look, so he's come out of the case. Can you see that? I'm just going to move it. Can you see that wriggly worm? Look at that. That is an absolutely stellar whiting bait. And where I live in New South Wales, Australia, these case worms can occur in many thousands. You put one of them on a small hook and flick it out, they're very good bait. Actually, I'm going to pick him up. He's actually broken. So in the case there where he broke, you'd use this fat part where he's crawling around. For some reason, they're a great estuary bait in winter. So there you have it, squirt worms or case worms. I can see heaps of holes here. Now, another amazing bait that fish absolutely love is the humble oyster. And you can find oysters along the coast in saltwater everywhere, in most lakes and rivers, at places like wharves, boat ramps, anywhere where there's rocks, break walls, rock walls. There's always oysters everywhere. Like just here, there's a few rocks just here that are covered in oysters, and we're actually standing beside a boat ramp, and along the edges of the boat ramp there's oysters growing along the edges of the boat ramp. So oysters occur in abundance, and they're actually great bait, and if you find some nice big ones, they're really good to eat as well. So there's a few oysters here. I'm going to open one up, but you've got to be really careful. There's a couple of ways you can do this. You've got to prise your knife in between the two, I suppose, parts of an oyster and gently prise it open. You've got to be careful. You don't want to put too much pressure, because if you slip and punch the oyster, you're going to cut yourself pretty bad. Or you can just find a small rock and gently crack the oysters to get the meat out. That's a really easy way to do it. So we're going to have a little look here. There's some oysters here. So look, I'm just going to get here. So I see how I've wedged my knife in here. You can see that's moving. So I've got to get into the muscle part of that shell. Okay, so I've got that open. Let's just see what sort of meat. Oh, look at that. There's a fair bit of meat there, actually. See that? See all of that meat. I'll pull that out. It's not a huge bait, but with light line, like 3 kilo line, and a small hook, you can use maybe a couple of these for bait. And the oyster also, just like what you call pippies or other mollusks, they have a tough tongue part to them. They've got like a soft belly part and a tough tongue part, and you put your hook through the tough part. It helps hold it on the hook, And fish love it. This occurs naturally, and it's what the fish eat. A lot of fish have got really tough teeth, and believe it or not, they can actually munch away on these sorts of rocks and oysters and things and actually get food. When I was looking around here, there's a number of the oysters that have already been bitten and cracked open by fish. You can find often in the estuaries that oysters aren't necessarily on rocks. They actually grow in little clumps, and in the case of this one, you can see that the oysters are formed around a cone shell. And these are actually big enough to eat, these oysters. Look at that. That's a lovely good size oyster there. You could eat that. Another one on the other side over there, or you could use them for bait, for bream. And when I'm looking in the weeds just here, I can see little clumps of oysters just scattered in the weeds. I've got a friend who, with his wife, they actually, every year, they go and collect oysters that are not attached and have a harvest and just go home and gorge themselves on oysters. So these are certainly readily available. They're free. All you need is a knife or a rock, and you can get as many as you want in most places. Probably the most highly valued thing that I gain from living sustainably, being out in the fresh air, fishing, doing all of these things, is it is so good for your soul. It's so good for your mind. Just actually being out in a beautiful environment and doing something that's positive and then reaping the rewards of your efforts. It's incredible. Actually, it makes you feel alive, which is so awesome. Recently, I held a beach fishing boot camp for a weekend, and I had 20 guys and we fished for a whole weekend together. And one of the biggest comments I got from that boot camp from people was, I didn't realise how much I missed camaraderie and hanging around with a great bunch of blokes. So the fishing was good, but the mateship was even better, and just doing things together. So I really want to encourage all of you who are watching this video, make time to get away from the screens, make time to have projects that actually inspire you. If you'd like a free PDF download of some vital keys from today's session, hit the link in the corner or in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, guys. See you in part 2.